Good morning, sixth grade. It's great to see you guys. I hope you've had a great break, and we are going to look today at a whole new system of the body. So in your notes, you'll see I asked you to ask yourself the question, how do you control your body? Which systems do you use? And based off of your previous knowledge, things you know about so far, your answer probably should have been the nervous system, right? We talked about how the nervous system uses your brain to respond to certain stimuli, and your brain can tell your body parts what to do. And so that is a true answer. But there's also another system that helps to control your body, and that's the endocrine system. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The endocrine system, we're going to just, when you look at your PowerPoints, you're going to see there's a comparison between the nervous and the endocrine system. The nervous system acts really quickly, okay? It responds in like microseconds to stimuli. So I touch myself and that message is already in my brain. I already know the different things that my brain is telling me based off of me rubbing my skin here, okay? Your endocrine system, on the other hand, works much more slowly, okay? Your nervous system also uses electrical impulses. That's what we talked about, how electricity is sent from your brain to your motor nerves and also from your sensory organs back up to your brain. Okay, and it does that via the neurons connected to your spinal cord, connected to your brain. Okay, that's a review of what we've talked about. The endocrine system, on the other hand, uses hormones. And hormones, if you don't know what they are essentially chemicals. Okay, they're chemical messengers. And a messenger just simply means someone who's giving a message to someone else. And so these chemical messengers will shout out things to your different glands, telling them to produce these chemicals or to essentially to start processes or to slow processes or to create chemicals and whatnot or enzymes that are needed to complete a job. So for example, you have when you eat food, right, it goes into your digestive system, and part of your digestive system, the way it works is you have these enzymes that help to break apart food in your small intestine. Well, how do these enzymes even know to come and do their job? Well, that's where the chemical messengers from your hormones send out messages to the different organs saying, hey, it's time to produce these enzymes so that they can do their job of digesting the food. And so these hormones essentially send out a message, and that message gets heard, and then it affects the particular cells that it needs to affect. Now, part of your notes, you'll see it says that it uses hormones, and then the blank is chemical messengers from the endocrine glands, which we're going to talk about in a sec, that affect target cells. They affect specific cells within your body. There's a specific purpose and organ or cell that is going to be used. Okay, it doesn't just go out to everyone. Okay, so to understand this, we need to talk about one particular part of your body called the hypothalamus. Now, the hypothalamus is located in your brain, which means it's a part of which system? Your nervous system, okay? But it's also a part of your endocrine system because your hypothalamus, it's in your brain, but it does things like control your body temperature. It also helps control your hunger. But one other thing it does is it controls your pituitary gland, and that pituitary gland is a significant part of your endocrine system. So that is in your brain, and in your brain is also this pituitary gland. So they kind of work together to talk to each other and do their thing. Glands are essentially, I don't want to use the word organs, they're essentially parts of your body that create these chemicals, okay? And so to start off, we're going to look at 4 different glands, and the first one we're going to talk about is probably the most important gland. It's your pituitary gland. Now, it's so important we give it the word master gland because it literally tells all the other glands what to do, okay? It's located, like I said, in your brain, and it produces, it sends out hormones to all your other glands telling them, okay, now it's time to turn this one on, or now it's time to turn this one off, or whatnot. It also, the other thing it does is controls your growth hormone. So growth hormones help with bone development. They help to make sure that you're growing at the proper rates. And you can actually have disorders that come from having either too much of this growth hormone or not enough of this growth hormone. And if you look in your text on page 357, you'll see 2 different pictures. The first picture is Robert Wadlow, and he is a very tall gentleman, okay? He is the world's tallest recorded man. He was actually from Alton, Illinois, so that's kind of cool. He's from Illinois, but he was 6 feet 5 inches tall and wore 17 and a half size shoes. Okay, he had an overactive pituitary gland. Now sorry, when I said that 6'10", you're probably like, that's big, but that's not that tall. That was when he was 10. Okay, so when he was 10, he was 6 feet 5 inches. So when he died in 1940, he was 8 feet 11 inches, almost 9 feet tall. So he was a very, very tall man. And that was because he had this overactive growth hormone in his pituitary gland. Now the opposite of that is dwarfism. And you'll see below him are three people who had suffered from dwarfism. Suffered is maybe not right the correct word here. But the one on the right, his name is Charles S. Stratton, and he was known as Tom Thumb. He worked with Barnum and Bailey's circus, and P.T. Barnum. And he suffered's not the right word. He had a underactive pituitary gland, so he did not get enough of the growth hormone. And so his wife, her name was Lavinia, and she's the one who is next to her on the left. Okay, so that's what happens when you don't either have enough or too much of that growth hormone. Okay, the next gland we're going to look at is the adrenal gland. You've probably heard of the hormone adrenaline. Okay, the adrenal glands are located on the top of your kidneys. You have two bean-shaped organs that are at the back of your body here that have their job is to help with the urinary system and clean the blood. And so on top of each of those are these glands, and they secrete the hormone adrenaline, which helps the body to deal with stress. So it's that fight or flight hormone. So if you get put into a really serious, situation, it's what's going to tell you need to book it on out of here and get out of here and run as fast as you can, or it gives you strength to do something and fight a situation. Sometimes you hear about people who have like unusual strength and unusual ability to respond to something because of the adrenaline that's coursing through their bodies. You also hear about how that works sometimes with people who are, having some sort of health issue, and they inject adrenaline in them, and it like wakes them up, gives them that jolt of energy that they need. Okay, that is actually a hormone, and it's found at the top of your kidneys. Okay, the next one is found in the pancreas. Now the pancreas is actually an organ, but it functions as a gland. It's located near your stomach, and it helps with your insulin regulation. Insulin helps with your body to know what to do with the sugar in the bloodstream, and so if it's working properly, then it will send out the right amount of insulin when you need it, like when you're eating and whatnot. And then if you do not make enough insulin, you might have a disease called diabetes. And diabetes, they end up having to inject or take in insulin themselves to help kind of regulate that sugar levels, because their body is not doing it on their own. Okay, and that's because of a lack of insulin from the pancreas. Okay. The fourth gland we're going to look at is the thyroid gland. It's located below the voice box in your neck. Okay, so it's right here. It's kind of like a butterfly-shaped organ. And it controls multiple different hormones. And these hormones control how your body uses food and makes energy. It also helps to influence your body growth and development. Okay, so this can either give you a lot of energy, can make it so that your body's constantly burning energy. Some of you might have a high metabolism because you've got a lot of different hormones from your thyroid coursing through your body. But can also, on the other side of things, if you're not making enough, it can make you sluggish and not have a lot of energy. Okay? So that's your thyroid. We're going to transition here to some disorders that are a part of your nervous system. Now, disorders is a little bit different than a disease. A disease is something you can contract from someone else. A disorder is something that you can't necessarily contract. It can be caused by things like injury, drug abuse, or it could be a genetic thing that you've inherited from your parents. So these are conditions that affect your nervous system. So there's 4 different ones we're going to look at. The first is epilepsy, which is a seizure disorder. Epilepsy occurs when you have sorry, my battery light came on. It occurs when your brain is having irregular activity. And so it can create these seizures that can affect your body. It can cause you to have a convulsion on the ground. It can cause you to have different things that happen to you. You may or may not know someone who suffers from this. So that's a seizure disorder. If you look in your textbook on page 358, it's going to talk a little bit about that, about how the neurons are sending too quick of impulses. Okay. Another one is multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is a neurological disease disorder that has to do with the myelin sheath. And if you remember from the myelin sheath, it's that protective coating that covers the axon. And the axon is the part that sends the message away from the brain or away from that neuron. And so when this happens, it can have some different effects. And it depends on which axons are being affected, which ones are losing their myelin sheath. But it could be things like muscle weakness and paralysis that happen because these nerve impulses aren't getting sent along the way they're supposed to. The next 2 diseases, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, they affect they essentially damage brain cells. Now, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's usually affect older people, but can affect people as young as 40. The difference between them is Parkinson's affects the brain cells that control movement, and Alzheimer's affects the brain cells that control thinking and reasoning. Okay? So with Parkinson's, you might have trembles that happen. They might have difficulty eating or writing, and then they but they can get more severe as more time goes on. Alzheimer's affects people's remembering, and so it usually starts with more short-term things, and then eventually they start losing their long-term memory. All of these disorders are so difficult for the families and for the people that are going through them, and it's just a reminder that we live in this broken world, right? This world is not perfect. There are disorders and diseases out there, but God is making all things new. And so one day we are going to see an unbroken world where there is no longer these diseases and disorders. And that's really encouraging and something to look forward to. So I hope you guys learned some things about your endocrine system today and about these diseases. Your homework is to do the activity manual, page 238. It's a study guide. We will go over that tomorrow in our Zoom, so make sure you do it beforehand, and then we'll talk through it at the Zoom, and then you can send it in to me for your grade. Okay? If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I love you all so much, and just want you to know that I'm praying for you and that I'm here for you. So if you have any questions or you're not understanding something, reach out, okay? All right, love you guys. Bye.